decision. Rise up, make that decision. God will provide all your needs. He wants you to succeed. Have faith of a mustard seed. Get up on your feet. Rise up.
Welcome to another segment of the Drexel Stigma Show. The month of October is designated as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so I think it's fitting to have a conversation with someone who went through that ordeal. Breast cancer is, one of the leading causes, one of the biggest causes of cancer, one of the biggest cancer elements is breast cancer. Right in the Turks and Caicos Islands, we've had so many cases of cancer. Some people died, but many people also survived. And so it's my pleasure to have Honorable Cheryl Astwood Tull to talk about her journey. She went through it twice, actually. And we're so grateful that she's here with us. She survived it. And I hope that this conversation with Honorable Tull will encourage you to, get checked out. Make sure you're okay, because sometimes you wait until when you do get checked out, maybe the very last stage. So it's best to get checked out very early. Okay. Breast cancer also takes place among men, even though it's probably not common, but it does take place among men as well. And with that said, I want to take this opportunity to welcome Honorable Cheryl Astwood Tull to my show. It's really grateful to have her here, because sometimes people want to talk about this for whatever reason. So I'm grateful that, she's here. I think this is our third time having someone on the show. The first one was Valerie Clare, and the second one was Donnell Henschel. And so today, now we have Honorable Tull. Honorable Tull, welcome to the show.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, I'm glad you came. Tell us about yourself.
Cheryl Astwood Tull, the first of 6 children to the late Louis and Mildred Astwood. I am wife to Leroy Tull and a mother to Lachelle and Carrick and 3 lovely grandchildren. A businesswoman here in the Turks and Caicos Islands and a proud daughter of the soil.
I know you are. You also used to be a member of parliament.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I'm the first woman to be elected to represent the island of Providenciales back in 1999.
That's right, eh?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you also, I'm quite sure you were Miss Turks and Caicos at one point, weren't you?
I was, that's right, in 1983, and I went on to represent the Turks and Caicos Islands at Miss World in London in November 1983.
Wow. You're a woman of diversity, right? Well, it's wonderful to, I'm glad that, as I said, I'm glad that you're here. And the purpose of this show is to talk about breast cancer. I want you to, from my understanding, you went through that twice.
I have.
I want you to tell the viewers, look in the camera, tell the viewers about your journey, how you discovered it, what did you went through, how you was able to get over it.
In 2004, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was only after I had lost an election in 2003, I decided to go to law school that same year. And sometimes they say, and it is true, I can attest to that, disappointments happened for the best. Because had I been home, I would have been so busy doing what I'm doing every day and not really taking care of myself. So I went to the UK in September of 2003, and 9 months into my program, was actually probably about 5 months in that I was just having a bath one day, and I noticed a lump, and I was like, this wasn't there. And I called my husband, and I was like, check this. You feel anything? And he was like, yes. And I said, what do you feel? And it was that. But I went on because I was new to the UK and the system is actually different from it is here. You just cannot go to a specialist. You have to join the general practice and see a GP and then have them refer you. And at that time, I really didn't know how the system worked. So I called a hotline, and it was just about counseling, and they wanted to check my mental state, with dealing with a probable cancer. And I said to them, well, I don't know that this is cancer. I need to see someone so I can be tested. And I could not see a general practitioner at that time. So what I did, I went on and I was able to contact a very private hospital. And it cost, just the doctor's visit and initial testing was over £2,000. And that's a lot of money for a student. But thankfully, my late father, he was always there for me. And the person that I saw, the specialist that I saw, he said, since I was studying and my husband was studying, when these results come back, if it is cancer, he was also with the NHS. He said that he would transfer me to the NHS if that is the case. So we went on and we did all the testing, and he said to give him a week. This was on a Saturday. And then a Tuesday, I got the call, and my heart started beating fast. I said, he didn't even wait a week. And so I knew, the minute the call came in, I knew. And then he confirmed it that he would like to see me in the clinic, and he had already transferred me to the NHS system. So it was a hospital near where I was staying that I would go. And once we went there, and he wanted to see, it was Tuesday, and he wanted to see me the Wednesday. So my husband and I, we went. And when we got there, he was talking, and he was trying to be really nice and diplomatic about the whole thing. And I said, Doc, give it to me straight. I can handle it. I said, what are the results? And he said, just what we feared. And I said, what is that? And he said, you have breast cancer. I said, okay, Doc. Now that I have breast cancer, what are we going to do? And we just went on, and I just took that bold attitude towards it right away. But I remember in preparation.
You were positive then. You didn't worry about.
No.
Oh.
I didn't worry about it because I come from a strong history of breast cancer. And so where my mom had actually lost like 4 sisters to breast cancer.
Really?
Yes.
And your mom too?
My mom was not diagnosed with cancer. Okay. She was diabetic and she died from complications of diabetes. But she'd lost 4 of her sisters to breast cancer. Oh, wow. And then by that time, we had already had a couple of cousins who had also gone through, and I myself, 10 years to that day, had also had a lumpectomy before that. So that was
lumpectomy?
Where there was a lump found in the breast back in 1994. And 18th of October 1994, it was removed in Nassau, Bahamas, but it was non-cancerous. Okay. So, but 10 years later, to the day, I was having a breast cancer surgery, the 18th of August, 2004. So we went on that. But in preparation for that doctor's appointment the Wednesday, I sat and I talked to my husband and my daughter at the time, Lichelle, she was 15. And I said, the doctor is calling now. I'm pretty sure this is what it is. And I want to talk to you so you can understand and all of that. And I remember Shelly, we call her, hugging me tightly. Mommy, I don't want you to die. Mommy, you can't die. I want you to see your grandchildren. And, she's 34 years old today, and I have 3 grandchildren. Wow. And my son, Carrick, at the time, was 3 years old, and I remember, praying, and I was like, Lord, you gave me this boy. He's only 3 years old. I need to see him grow. I need to see him become a man. I don't want anyone to take advantage of my child. And Carrick is 21 years old today. Wow. He just finished his bachelor's in finance and investment management. And he's now just taken on a job in that area. So I'm really, really proud that the Lord answered my prayer. Yes. And now my next prayer of many prayers is that I live to be 100 years old.
That's it. That's it. Wow.
So, after the meeting, we went the Wednesday, and then it was set up that I will go through further testing, scans and what have you. And we did all of that. So I had breast cancer surgery. I went through chemotherapy, which was very, very, very tough.
How long you went through chemotherapy?
Over a 4-month period.
Okay.
Yes, it was once every 3 weeks, and it was 6 treatments, and I went over it over a 4-month period. I think it was from December to April.
Okay.
Right. So I went through all the challenges of breast cancer treatments, chemotherapy. I lost my hair. That was my biggest fear at the time. I didn't want to lose my hair. And so, but then I started wearing wigs, and I experimented with the colors and all the styles. And I just thought, breast cancer is a thing. And the Bible says that we should have dominion. He put men on earth to have dominion over things.
That's true.
And I figured at that time I had I was at a spiritual state, mental state that I was able to handle it. And I just went ahead about it positively. I didn't think negative at all about it, even though I went through the period where it was actually, I was very, very frail and weak,
Wow. So what stage was that when you, I know they have different stages, right?
Yes. I was diagnosed at a stage 2.
Stage 2.
Yes,
Okay.
but luckily for me, I didn't have any lymph node involvement. And so when they did the surgery, they checked them all out. I think they took out at that time 11 lymph nodes, and they were all negative for cancer. So that was a very good sign that it was really early. And I went on and dealing with that for 12 years until I was diagnosed again in 2016.
Wow.
So now that was a routine mammogram, and so it's always good to have those done. Routine mammogram, and then they weren't sure. They thought it was a shadow, but it was not a lump really. It was showing up on the mammogram, but they wanted to be sure, so they wanted to do a biopsy, meaning to go in and take whatever they were looking at out to make sure what it was. So I got scared, and I was like, Lord, again? And I'm like, what to do now? And I'm like, would it be ungrateful to continue to ask you to save my life? You did this before, and and I'm walking this way again.
So what year is this?
2016.
2016. Okay.
Yes, it was 12 years later.
12 years, okay.
And I went through, and I went back to England. I decided I was not going to do the biopsy here. So I went back to England to the same doctors, and I was lucky to have the same surgeons, the same team. And so they saw me, and I had to go through it again. But this time it was stage 2 again, but it was again very, very early. Okay. And so I did not have to, even the first time I did not have to do chemotherapy, but I opted. They said to me that if I was the type of person who would want to say they've done all they could to make sure there is no reoccurrence, then I would be the candidate. So I said to them, well, I'm that candidate. And I went ahead and I did the chemotherapy. I didn't do any radio treatment. I didn't have to do that. And the second time,
chemotherapy was
no, that was the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the second time, they said it was not an option for me.
Okay.
I did not have to do it at all.
Oh, okay.
And so I didn't do it again. Yeah.
Okay. And so that was 2016.
Yes.
And so how long did it take for you to go into remission? I mean, after that?
After
the second diagnosis.
The second diagnosis, I was in remission for about after 2 years.
After 2 years?
Yes. That's when, I was doing all the scans and doing everything. Everything was fine from the beginning.
So you spent that 2 years in the UK?
No, I was here.
Oh,
just going back for appointments and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
Both times actually. The first time in 2004, it took about 6 months, okay, because once I'd done the surgery and completed the chemotherapy, then I was cleared. And even, even though I was cleared, for after 6 months, they were checking me every 6 months for like 2 years. And then it went into annually for like another 3 years. And they cleared me after 5 years. And so there's a medication that I took for 5 years. Okay. But I told them I wanted to take it another year. And so I took it for 6 years. And then I went on from there. And so even now, from 2016, I'm still on medication. I still do my checks, and I tell them I want them to keep me on the radar. And so that's why I'm still there.
That's why you still take the medication?
Yes.
So you don't really have to?
No, I don't have to, because it's over 5 years. You have to take it for 5 years. But I'm now 6 years on.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not, all right.
And some studies, what doctor has said too, is that some studies have now proven that if you take it for a longer period, or maybe they're saying maybe for the rest of my life, the chances are better.
Right.
And I probably think I agree with that, because I took the first set of medication for 6 years, and then I was fine for 6 years, and then year 12, then I was re-diagnosed.
And so every year you get an annual, every year you get a check?
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months. Every 6 months.
Yes. So now what we do is cancer markers, and that's through blood tests. They don't like to do it for everyone, but I am a person who insists. You have to read. You have to educate yourself. You have to know what's available out there, and you bring it to the doctor, because as a patient, you are responsible for your own health, and they can only act on what you've said to them. And so I continue to read up, try to find out what's latest in treatment, breast cancer treatment, and I just move on from there, But I'd have an interesting part though, because some people give up. I remember when I was going through chemotherapy, there were friends of mine who were going through chemotherapy at the same time, and I think I completed the treatment just ahead of them. And I know of 2 in particular who gave up, and they said they're just not going to do it anymore. They're just so tired. And you get to that point, because I've been to the point in my first treatment where I thought, okay, probably I'm going to die, because I felt weak enough, sick enough to die. Yeah. And that's on chemotherapy.
So tell us about the chemotherapy. What chemotherapy, sorry. What all that involves? I mean, what is it?
It's a medication that's done through, they give it to you intravenously. And when you go into the treatment center, it's taken, so they hook you up to the IV, and you're there for like 2 to 3 hours. And it's for me, it was a cocktail of 3 medication. I don't remember the individual names, but it was a long name for each one, FEC, and they call it FEC. And I remember the doctor saying to me, and I was like, what is FEC? He said, don't worry about it. It's harshest on the market, and we only do FEC, baby. And so that's why I know that was the type of treatment that I had. And so, but the first treatment was fine, and I said, okay, I'm going to be doing well. Second was okay. Third, you start getting downhill. And you are nauseous, the fatigue, and all of that. And it was really rough for me, because I was going to law school at the time.
That's true.
And so I would do my treatments, and then after treatment, I'd rest for a day, and the next day I'm back in class. And I remember when my head of my program found out that I was actually going through cancer treatment, and they were like, take a break, this is too much for you. And then I was dealing with a toddler at the time too, but I didn't want to take a break. I thought, I'm going to get through this. I came here on an accelerated program, 2 years, I'm going to be out of here. And that's just what I did. And I remember even when I had surgery after a week in hospital, I was out of hospital for a week, and then I was in exams. And my husband, who was a great support system,
That's it.
he would come and he would sit on that bed and he would read those big law books to me and read and quizzing me. And when it was time to go to the exam rooms, I remember this time after I was out of hospital and I was still high on I was still high on the anesthesia and all of that. And he would quiz me on this case and next case and that law and straight to my exam room. And then he would leave me there. When I get inside, I start writing fast.
Awesome.
fast, all my notes,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't lose it. And then I came out of that exam in flying colors.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Thank God for your
Yes,
support from your
yes,
husband.
yes, and my
And I
daughter.
think that's very important.
Very
When
important.
you're going through this, the
Very
support
important.
system.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had and I still have a very strong support system. My siblings, my father, who's now no longer with us, he was with me straight through.
I believe that.
Yes. I remember that Christmas I was in the UK because I couldn't travel. He called me and he said, "Cheryl, you sure you got everything you need?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You have your ham?" I said, "Yes, Daddy." "You have your turkey?" I said, "Daddy, I got everything I need." And because it was my first Christmas away from home, and then I was going through all of that. And but I couldn't have asked for a better support system. Straight through cousins, everybody were involved.
Right. What are some of the other, you mentioned earlier about challenges. I know you talk about during the treatment. What other challenges did you encounter during this time?
Yes, especially for me, because I was someone who was in politics. And I remember coming back from school and there were, people were not sure. This was in 2004 and people didn't come out and really speak about cancer and that sort of thing. It was a big hush-hush around the topic. And so I spoke about it because people knew. I actually had persons who were campaigning against me. Because they said,
diagnosis?
We can't do, you can't think about Cheryl now because Cheryl is going through cancer and Cheryl wouldn't be here for the next election. And I'm proud to say that was 2004 that I was going through that. I was here in 2007.
Are you here in 2020?
I was here in 2012 and 2016. And I was also here in 2021 and I'm still here.
That's right.
To God be the glory.
That's right.
And so you can't write persons out. But that one was okay for me. But because I've been in business now for a very, very long time and my biggest challenge came through business.
Wow.
I'm not thinking politics because, it will come and go anyway.
Yeah.
But through business and the type of business that I'm in, and I have persons who would book my service from a year in advance. And I was like about 5 years struggling with my business because once they knew that I was going through cancer treatment, I had persons who didn't want to book me and they didn't. Because it was like, we're not sure Cheryl's going to be here next year. Or the year after, and I went through that for 5 yes.
Wow.
I went through that for 5 years where my business really struggled. And so, I tried to give all the assurance and, I'm fine and always trying to be out there and be around. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do what I have to do. I don't have to overexert myself. They will see that I'm fine and they'll see that they can still trust me. And so it was like 5 years.
Wow, people are people are amazing.
Yes.
The thoughts, the stigma, the myths that are associated with so many things.
And so that's why, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And I'd actually gone into a time where I didn't want to talk about it anymore because, I was like, the more I talk about it, the more people, there was this stigma and people didn't want to deal with me.
Wow.
And, but like I say, thankfully, I have some very, very good family and some very, very good friends and who stuck by me and encouraged me along the way. Yeah. And I must say that now, people don't even, if I don't say, they don't even know because a lot of time I think people don't even remember, And so that's why I'm happy that you asked me to come on because I want people to know that, it's an illness and there is treatment. God has put wisdom into doctors and there's so much out there that can help people.
Exactly.
So here I am now. This is 18 years later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honorable Tull, I don't have any stats on the number of cases we have in Turks and Caicos, but I read documents where millions of people have breast cancer, and I know it's increasing in Turks and Caicos. Almost every month, you hearing all these persons being diagnosed with breast cancer. Do you know what is causing breast cancer? Do you know what is causing this increase, particularly in breast cancer?
I am not sure because I don't know what testing that they're doing here. But I do know. I've heard for the month of September unofficially that we've had 15 new cases of cancer, breast cancer,
Oh, wow, that's high.
including men. But breast cancer can come through hereditary, and I do have a high history in my family of breast cancer. But I can say that I have not gotten it because of family history. The UK, they were very interested in our case, our family's case, because they wanted to know if I knew anyone with it, and I was able to tell them that I had 4 aunts with breast cancer, and I had cousins who had breast cancer, and the rest of it. So it's I think in all we had like 11 family members. So they did a test with me for the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. That's a hereditary gene for breast cancer. And then when the results were back, we had to wait like 6 to 8 weeks for the results. When they were back, they said, no, you're negative for BRCA1 and BRCA2, meaning that I did not have the gene that caused breast cancer. So I could not have gotten it through family history. And so I was happy about that because they said, well, okay, since you don't have it, you can pass it on to your children. So it has to be lifestyle in terms of what we eat. And we eat a lot of processed foods. We just don't eat right here. We don't do that. And so, or it could be the environment. I'm from Grand Turk, and people thought about a number of persons in the area where the US bases were, and that perhaps we should do some investigation as to what happened over on the hill there where the radar station was. So I don't know. But then my daughter, she was also tested some years ago, and they tested her for the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene, and it confirmed that she was negative for that gene. So she doesn't have, she doesn't have the cancer gene, and so she can't pass it on to her children. She's never had cancer, but they were concerned because I had cancer, and then I had such a high history of cancer in my family. But like I say, I don't have the cancer gene, BRCA1 and BRCA2. I'm negative for that. But I've had 2 cancer diagnoses. Breast cancer diagnosis. And so it is worth perhaps, the private sector or, in a joint venture with government and doing some testing to find out really what is happening in this place. Because for our population, the number of persons with breast cancer and any other type of cancer is just too high.
It's high per capita.
It is.
And I agree with you. I do think lifestyle. I think our diet plays a role in everything we do.
We have to go back to, eating our ground food and stuff. We didn't hear about these things years ago.
No, we didn't.
But what we're eating now, everything that we want to do now, it's so different from what happened back in our grandparents' days and that sort of thing. But it is worth having a look at. You're because we need to know, because we really need to try to, curb it. It's just too much now.
Absolutely right. So what advice would you give to women and men as well? I mean, what people listening to the show, what are you going to tell them about checking their health? What advice
I would say always be mindful of what you're dealing with. So continue to do routine testing for ladies. You go out and get your mammogram done. When you're having your bath, examine yourself. Some people don't like to touch themselves, but you have to, because luckily for me, it was through touching that I was first made aware of what was happening to me. And then I was able to go on and get the mammograms done, and luckily it was done early. And like the second time around, I was doing routine mammogram, and I was able to find another one that was even earlier. So I would say, there's nothing to be afraid of the doctors for, but read, and educate yourself, because sometimes you're going to have to insist that the doctors do certain things for you. Like for me, I just had a situation the other day where they don't want to do the cancer markers anymore. And I'm like, how else are you going to do it? You need to do the cancer markers. And so I don't want to see a certain doctor because this doctor has said that I don't need it. And I know I need to have the cancer markers. And so...
What is cancer mark again?
It's a test done through through blood tests.
Okay, so that's...
Where
okay.
they would it can tell whether the numbers for cancer is, because it's a number between 0 and 38. Mm-hmm. That's normal.
So you didn't know why they don't want to do that?
I personally feel that they just don't want to be bothered.
Oh.
Now, that's how I feel. They're telling me that I don't really need to have them because I've been doing well for so long. But I am the kind of person who want to be on top of my situation. Mm-hmm. Okay?
You want to make sure.
And I've had a double mastectomy, so I can do mammograms. Mm-hmm. So I need another way. Yeah. And so for me, I'm insisting that I have those cancer markers done annually. And so I just had one done like 3 weeks ago.
Good,
so
good for you.
I'm still waiting on the results.
Mm-hmm. So Honorable Tull, you mentioned the double mastectomy. How does that make you feel as a woman about yourself? Does it bother you? Or you reach a point where your health is more important?
My health is important. It has never bothered me. I've had options for reconstruction. I've had options to do all that sort of thing. I always say I've never been a vain person. Okay. And like my husband said in the beginning, we'd rather you hear without any.
That's right.
Than to die with two.
That's right.
And if I had probably taken that option to, not do anything about it and not have the surgery as suggested, I probably would have been gone a long time, like a lot of my friends have.
That's true.
And
true.
So I had an aunt who actually thought her husband, my husband is a young man. And she died at 39. Was buried on what would have been her 40th birthday. Wow. And her husband only died last year at 77 years old, Mm-hmm. So, it's those kind of things. And for me, it doesn't define who you are.
True.
It doesn't, and it has never bothered me. And I've been in a position, and I am in a position where I could have gone out and get any surgery I want. Mm-hmm. But I chose to do just what I'm doing. I wear a prosthesis, in fact, 2, and it doesn't bother me one bit. My family, they're all fine with it. My husband is fine with it, and I'm fine with it.
As long as you're fine.
At the end of the day, and I'm here making a difference in the lives of my family and my friends, and I can still be here to help to guide my children and my grandchildren, and so I'm proud.
And other people in society.
Yes, and that's it. And like I say, if I don't say, nobody even knows.
That's right.
You know?
So I want to go back, because you say the first time when you were diagnosed, you were okay because you had a lot of family members who went through that already. But you say the second time, you was a little bit scary.
Yes.
How did you overcome that fright?
I think because once I'd gone out and really was checked out, and then I realized that it was nothing. It was even earlier. So I used the first as my guide, because the cancer at that time was even earlier. And how do we know that? In terms of the size. The first one was the size of a quarter. So that's small.
Really?
The first one, I found it that early. And the second one was the size of a dime.
Okay.
So for me, that was really early. I know persons who've had the size of an egg.
That's big.
That's big. Yes. And so once I knew, so when they said, yes, cancer, but you don't know until after you've had surgery, and they're able to, they did the biopsy and all that stuff, and then you get to know the size. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not as bad as the first one. And the first one, you were okay. So I started getting over it like that. But I was still a bit scared because I was like, suppose it happens again. Suppose I'm not so lucky this time to get over it. And, you go through all that stuff. And I'm, oh, Lord, I don't want to go through chemotherapy again because it made me so sick. Because it's the chemotherapy that makes you sick. That medication, oh my God, no. The scent, that metal scent, I could smell it when I'm going, I could smell it like 2 miles away. And I would start feeling sick.
Wow.
And so I didn't, I was scared of all of those things, afraid of all of those things.
Right.
And but once I knew what I was actually dealing with,
Got it.
and then I went through that.
Right.
And never underestimate the power of prayer
Absolutely.
and faith in everything. And then I would just pray for a peace of mind, and then I just overcame that.
That is awesome.
Yes.
So at what age, based on your knowledge, at what age should people start doing their checks?
Based on my knowledge, I would say they should start from 30.
From 30?
Yes. And because even when I was to be tested, they were like, we don't start regular mammograms until you're 50.
Oh.
And so I was like, because I remember when I told you
I mean,
earlier
even
about...
after you felt that lump.
Yes, because I was going to say now, because even remember, I had a lumpectomy.
Oh, yes. 10 years earlier.
In 1994. And when I went in and asking for a mammogram at that time, they said, no, you're only 20-something. We don't do mammograms at 20-something. You have to be 50. And so I said, well, I'm feeling something. I said, so I need to have something done. And I went to Miami, and I had a mammogram done in Miami. And then they said yes. And I went to Nassau, because my mom was there at the time. She was ill. And actually, while she was in hospital, that's when I had the lumpectomy done in Nassau. And they were like, and I was just like 29. So that's why I say 30.
Yeah.
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 So that's why I say 30.
Thanks for that.
And so, but when I was actually diagnosed, I was 39.
39. Wow, so you're
It's
right.
just 39. I was diagnosed.
Right. Now there are people, Honorable Tull, who have this mentality that they rather not know whether they are sick or not. What do you say?
That's
what
dangerous.
do you say about that?
That is dangerous, because if you don't know and you're sick, you're surely going to die.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is to know and be treated, because there is all sorts of treatment out there for, everything you can think of, it's there. And if it is caught early, then your chances are, your chances are much better.
Survival.
And so, and I would say, go based on my own situation. Like I said, there were lots of persons who were diagnosed since me, but they were afraid to go to the doctor. Yeah. By the time they got to the doctor, they were at a stage 4.
Yeah.
And it's very, very challenging dealing with a stage 4 cancer. Some persons survive it. And I know I have a family member now who's undergoing treatment for stage 4 cancer. And, but it is very, very difficult at a stage 2. I have a brother who was actually diagnosed with breast cancer.
Really?
Yes, he was actually diagnosed like 6 months after I was the first time.
Oh.
And it depends on how early you are diagnosed and then treated. Because he was diagnosed right here in Providenciales. He had a mastectomy right here at Myrtle Rigby, and he is still fine. Yeah. And he's like 17 plus on. I'm 18 years on, and he's 18 years come next March. So it's very important that you check. Yes, you're going to be afraid and all of that, but you'll get over it. Yeah. And you'll feel much better once you know you are being treated.
Yeah, and I think your chances of survival are better too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Nobody wants to see lose their family member.
No.
It's best for you to check out.
And it's so when I look back at what happened in 2004, and I looked at what has happened in 2023, and I think I've lived my best life since 2004.
That's awesome.
And so had I just, folded up and gave up and all of that, I mean, they probably would have been celebrating. Definitely, they would have been saying, okay, she was this and she was that, because I would have been gone.
Yeah.
But I fought, and I'm so happy, and I just always give thanks and praises to God for strengthening me, that I was able to fight and continue to fight.
Yeah. Well, other than experiencing the lump, are there any other symptoms that people may have?
In early stages, you have to be checking for signs of lumps. You can have skin rashes. I didn't have that. The only thing I had was a lump. But I know for some persons, they can have skin rashes. Some of them can have a discharge from the breast, but that's not early. Discharge, definitely that's late stage.
Okay.
So for me, like I said, I mean, if you had seen the appearance, and I have photographs, I said, I was all, okay, I need to see what this looks like now. I'll be able to show this, and I'll be able to show that. And if you looked, you would have never known. There was no difference in appearance, anything. But that's because it was very early stage.
Right.
Because you have persons, I know I had an aunt who had it started to look like the skin of the orange peel, where you have all of the dents and all of that. You have some people with disfiguration, but that's late stage.
Okay.
Yes. So, but like I said, for me, it was just feeling a lump.
Right.
And even in the second one, it wasn't even feeling a lump, because the lump was just that small, but it was routine mammogram.
Well, I really appreciate this time. It's been very informative. And I know the viewers will be happy to have, listen to the discussion. I hope that inspires them to get a mammogram. Do you have any closing remarks or anything else you'd like to share before we end the show?
And I would say, mammogram would be for our females, but for our male, you have to check too. So you have to examine yourself while you're having your bath or any other time. You have to be aware of, what your body feels like, and so that you're able to say, well, okay, this is different. This wasn't here. So, keep on checking like that, and always, talk to someone. Because some people are afraid, so, talk to someone about that. And that's basically it. Yeah. Because the important thing is to catch it while it's early. Yeah. You're gonna have challenges, but the real challenges come when it's too late.
Yes. Well, thank you for watching the Drexel Stigma Show, and I encourage all of you, not just about cancer, but anything, get annual checkups. Go to go to your doctor, get an annual checkup. Don't take things for granted. Don't take your life for granted. And breast cancer, as I mentioned, one of the leading causes of death among women. And you could avoid this if you get an early detection. I know sometimes people do. And also, if you do have cancer, I encourage you, to not panic. I know it's easy said than done to, not give up. We have our guest, Honorable Tull. Imagine she had given up. Here we are in 2022. Look at what she's accomplished. Look what she's doing and inspiring others. And you too could be like that. So the key is, get your support system. She had a husband, she had a daughter who were her support team. And that's what you need. And always, believe and have faith and pray that you'll get a breakthrough. And I know sometimes even people who are in late stages, it's possible as well to be recovered. Don't ever give up. So this month, which is Breast Cancer Month, I hope you are now become more aware of breast cancer, and I hope you take your health into consideration. Don't worry about what people think about you because you maybe have to remove your breast. Don't worry about that. That is your life. Your health is more important. And please take this interview with Honorable Tull very, very seriously, because the earlier you can detect it, the better for you. And perhaps you'll increase your chances of survival as well. So thank you for watching the Drexel Stigma Show.
Rise up, rise up.